The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
You know what makes every outfit look better? The right bra from Third Love. Their bras make it easy to ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or even stop your shirt buttons from pulling. They make over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, so you'll find your perfect fit. Third Love solves bra problems, or what they call broblems. Real women test every style they make. Comfort and support are guaranteed. So stop settling for bad bras. You deserve better. Get your problem solved today. Save $15 on your first order with code podcast15 at thirdlove.com.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.
Hi, everyone. This is Jillian with Court Junkie. Court Junkie is a true crime podcast that covers court cases and criminal trials using audio clips and interviews with people close to the cases. Court Junkie is available on Apple Podcasts and podcastone.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 310 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
It's been a great week weather-wise.
Yeah.
It's been in the 70s.
Hey, today was 80.
Was it? Did it hit
Yeah.
80? I don't know. I'm soaking up the vitamin D I needed.
I was working with my shirt off.
Oh, so there was a whole throng of women lined up or like standing in a semicircle watching you work?
I work inside my place
Oh,
myself, you know.
in the air conditioner?
I just had my shirt off, you know.
I got you. Hey, let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. Deanna Lori Stock.
Hey, Deanna.
Anna Brennan jumped out to her highest level.
Hey, thanks, Anna.
Susan Hubner.
What's up, Susan?
Hannah Kate Tomlin.
Hey, Hannah.
Mandy B jumped out to her highest level.
What up, B?
Shelby Rose Petro.
Hey, Shelby.
Lori De Laurentiis.
Oh, thank you, Lori.
Will Barretto.
What's going on, Barretto?
Samantha Jane.
Hey, Samantha.
Holly Tapley.
Thank you, Tapley.
Stuart Brown.
Hey, Brown.
Jamie Stewart.
Hey, Jamie.
Jessica Thomas.
What's up, Jessica?
Jennifer Reed.
Hey, Reed.
Melinda Brabant.
Ah, Brabant.
Kanisha King.
Hey, King.
Susan Vickery.
Vickery Dickory Doc.
Trouble Ice.
Hey, Trouble.
Nakia.
What's up, Nikia?
Tracy Miles jumped out at our highest level.
That's awesome, Tracy.
And last but not least, Lauren Burris.
Well, thank you, Lauren.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Gretchen Hereford.
Hey, thank you, Hereford.
Yeah, we appreciate all the new Patreon support, the continued support. We had great PayPal donations from Vivian Lore.
There's Vivian.
And Sarah Williams.
Thanks, Sarah.
So, Gibbs, we have a lot out right now on True Crime All the Time. We have an episode out on Marcy Griffin, who, along with two other men, shot and killed her ex's girlfriend. But she was kind of the mastermind behind the whole thing. And then we put an episode out on Saturday on Patreon about Richard Valente, a man who murdered a number of girls in South Carolina. He was a bad dude.
He was. Sick little individual.
All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We're talking about the disappearance of Brian Klecha. Brian Klecha disappeared in late December 2017. He has not been seen since then and hasn't contacted his friends or family. Before he went missing, Brian shared a home with an ex-boyfriend and some other roommates, which was described as a tumultuous living situation. Brian's family and friends do not believe he left the house of his own free will. Brian Edward Klecha was born on October 6, 1982. He was 35 years old when he went missing. His mother, Kathy, described him as a happy child. Brian was friendly and enjoyed being around other kids, which Kathy thinks was due to him being an only child. That's something you wouldn't know anything about.
I would not.
I was an only child.
You were.
But I don't remember enjoying being around other kids.
No?
I think I did maybe when I was little. I don't so much anymore.
You don't like being around anybody.
No, I like to be by myself a lot. With my family. I like to be with you when we're recording.
Yeah, then you make me leave right away. Like,
Exactly.
Go. Take these bags of trash with you.
Get
leave them
going.
at the curb.
Everyone who spoke about Brian in various interviews had something positive to say about him. He's been described as kind, generous, and just an overall good person. Brian served in the Air Force, but there wasn't much in the research about his time in the military.
Not surprising.
No, I don't know what they would have said. It must have been pretty uneventful, or they probably would have reported on something. Brian worked as a bus driver at Disney World and was an Uber driver for extra money.
Well, if anybody knows anything about Uber driving, that'd be you.
I did drive for Uber for like a summer.
It was like an experiment for you. That's the weird thing. You didn't do it because you wanted the money.
No.
You were bored and just wanted to see what it was all about.
Yeah. I just wanted the experiences.
Yeah.
Now, it turned out that I used the money that I made from Uber that summer to buy the equipment to start this podcast.
You did. But I remember you coming into the office. That's when we still had to come into the office.
Yep.
And you came in and the stories you had. I mean, we all waited for you to get in that morning so we can hear about the funny Uber stories from the night before.
Because it was every night.
Yeah.
Something wild
Yes.
happened. Something worth talking about
Yeah.
happened. And I don't have that in my everyday life anymore.
No. Because you always did that weird Uber shift, like.
I'd stay out till like 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'd get all the drunks and
Exactly.
it was awesome. His coworkers told Fox 13 that Brian lit up the room like a July 4th sparkler. Another friend told the outlet he was fun-loving and always tried to make us laugh. He wanted to find someone he could spend the rest of his life with and just be happy. According to the Disappeared blog, Brian frequented LGBT nightclubs in Hillsborough County and Pinellas County, Florida. Brian met his close friend Nate Bosia at an LGBT bar in 2014. Nate told the Disappeared documentary team that Brian had a childlike innocence about him and liked to go on adventures. Brian helped him realize he had a drinking problem and went with him to rehab facilities. And I know I said LGBT a couple of times. I know now it's LGBTQ plus, I think.
Yeah.
But we're basing this on reporting from like 2014. I think that's what they were using back then. But it does sound like, overall, Brian was a good guy.
Sure it does.
Here he's helping his friend realize that he has a drinking problem, but he's taking it a step further. And he's actually going with him to rehab to help him out.
That's a good friend.
On December 15th, 2017, Brian moved into a house in Lakeland, Florida, owned by a man named Andrew Dowler. Brian brought his 2 cats, or his fur babies, as he called them, along with him. One of Andrew's tenants, Ramon Antonio Perez Seda, normally referred to as AJ, told Andrew that a guy he knew named Brian needed a place to stay. He vouched for Brian. So Andrew allowed him to rent a room in the house. When Andrew met Brian, he noticed he was shy and soft-spoken. According to the Disappeared blog, Brian lived with 4 roommates: Andrew Dowler, Dylan Kimbrell, Manny Maldonado, and Ramon Antonio Perez Seda, who I'm just going to call AJ for the remainder of this episode. Dowler's home was known as a party house, according to Bay News 9. Brian moved there for 2 reasons. Number 1, to be closer to work, and number 2, because of his relationship with AJ. The 2 men had an on-again, off-again relationship that has been described as tumultuous. Okay, there's that word again.
Yeah.
The relationship is tumultuous.
The house.
The house situation is tumultuous. We'll have to see what we make of that as we move along. I do want to talk a little bit about this being the party house. Go back to your 20s, Gibbs. I mean, I know it was the 1950s, so
Easy.
Things have changed a lot. But you remember back in the day when people started getting their own apartments, houses, there was always someone, one of your group of friends who kind of had what was referred to as the party house.
Oh, yeah. I went down to by UD where my buddies all lived in the house together. And it's where, it's Friday after work. You went down there. You were down there Friday, Saturday, and it was just party all the time. Like the song, Party All the Time.
But Eddie Murphy?
Yeah.
But getting back to this word tumultuous, and as it relates to this relationship with AJ, in one example, a couple of months before his disappearance, Brian filed a police report stating that his boyfriend punched him and stole his money. According to Nate Bosea, he received calls from Brian when he was upset about something AJ had done. Andrew Dowler told Disappeared about the relationship, "I have no idea exactly when they met or how long they've known each other, but they both used the term boyfriend at a different time. But AJ was far more guarded with that term."
A lot of people in relationships are sometimes not in the same place.
When it comes to where they believe the relationship is. Yeah. Are we boyfriends? Are we boyfriend, girlfriend? One side thinks they are. Right. The other's like, I don't think we are, but maybe I'll say it.
Yeah.
It can go.
I'm not to that level yet. So
yes.
I'm just going to say you're my friend.
Right. I mean, it can go a bunch of different ways. And I think the situation that you were describing sounds like exactly what was going on between Brian and AJ. The relationship was either over at the time Brian moved in or it ended very quickly after because AJ started dating a new man. AJ told Andrew that he had a friend named Dylan who also needed a place to stay. And Brian was a good roommate. He trusted AJ, so he allowed Dylan to move in. But Brian was very upset about the breakup and about AJ's ensuing relationship with Dylan. This led to a lot of tension in the house.
I bet it did.
Well, you think about any breakup you've ever had, and then imagine that you have to continue to live in the same house.
And to see that your partner at that time doesn't waste any time.
Well, okay. And on top of that, you're living with your ex's new partner.
Yeah.
That would be very difficult. Andrew told Disappeared, "There's a very uncomfortable, very palatable amount of tension in the house between AJ's attention going to Dylan, Brian getting jealous." So you had this very crazy triangle of drama that erupted that I never saw coming. And throwing flame on a gasoline, it was pretty bad. So, I mean, this is pretty descriptive coming from Andrew.
You can see how it could get bad.
There's no way it's ever going to go well.
No.
This scenario, I just don't see any avenue where it works out. Andrew recalled Brian laying against the wall of a room, and it seemed like he had his ear to the wall so he could listen into Dylan's room. He appeared very sad, and Andrew was worried for him. Brian moved in just 10 days before Christmas, which is a hectic time for most people. I know it is for me and my family. Both Andrew and Brian work, so they didn't see each other all that often. It's 7:47 a.m. on December 22nd, 2017. Andrew left the house to go on vacation. He saw Brian from the hallway. His door was open, and he was laying in bed with his cats. Kathy Klecha last heard from Brian on December 26th. Brian texted her to ask her if she'd sent him money for Christmas. Brian had loved Christmas since he was a boy, but when he got older, he told his mom he'd rather have money over gifts, so she just started transferring money to his bank account.
Sounds like a lot of older kids.
Well, that's where my kids are at now. We went from they wanted whatever new toy, electronic gizmo was hot that year to we just want money.
Can we just have some cash?
So my wife doles out the cash, but then she feels bad that they have nothing to open.
Yeah.
So then she buys them a bunch of stuff to open. I feel like they're getting double.
They are getting double.
I know.
They figured it out.
Kathy called Brian and said she sent the money on the 24th and it should be in his account soon. She told Disappeared that Brian thanked her and said, "I'm in a hurry, Mom. I have to go and I'll call you back later." But she never heard from Brian again. And we talked this week in our TCAT episode about these types of conversations, the last conversation that you ever have with a loved one. And I think in that instance, it was also a mother talking to her child, her grown adult child. But we talked about how etched in your mind that conversation would be because it's the last one that you ever had.
Yeah, you're going to remember it.
You'll never forget. On December 27th, 2017, Brian was captured by security cameras making a transaction at Mid-Florida Credit Union in Auburndale. These surveillance photos are the last known images of Brian. According to Kathy, it was normal for her to go several days or even up to 6 months without talking to Brian. So she wasn't overly concerned when he didn't answer her call on December 28th. She just assumed he was busy.
That's a long time. I mean,
it's a big span.
It is. And I can't imagine not talking to either one of my kids
for 6 months.
For 6 months. I'd be hunting them down.
Yeah.
I'd be wanting to know things. I can guarantee you when my mom was alive, it didn't go more than a few days without her calling me.
Wondering what you were doing, why you hadn't called her.
Yeah. But I get it. I mean, kids get busy. People get busy.
They do. I guess what jumped out to me about it was that the span was so long.
Right.
Saying it was normal for her to go several days, but even up to 6 months, those are two very different things. Several days I get. I don't talk to my daughter in college, but every several days. Yeah. She doesn't call me every day. I wish she would, but she won't.
If anything, maybe you text more. I don't know.
Yeah, we do text more, but you're right, man. If I didn't talk to one of my kids in 6 months, that would be a serious cause for concern.
Yeah. And I get it. Every parent-child relationship's different.
It is.
Yeah.
And it is. You're absolutely right. Now, we were just saying she wasn't alarmed when she didn't hear from him the next day. And I don't think most people would be. But as more time passed, Kathy became worried that something was wrong. She called, she emailed, she even texted Brian at different times of the day, sometimes even called him in the middle of the night, hoping he would be at home sleeping, but she just couldn't get any answers from him. Kathy and Brian were supposed to go to the movies together, but Brian never showed up. Brian told her that he moved, but he didn't share his new address with Kathy, so she couldn't even drive over to check on him. She drove around to some of his favorite spots, hoping to find him there.
You know, as a mom now, she's freaking out. She has to be.
If you're going to favorite haunts just to try to figure out, where your son is, yes, you're at that point where the panic has set in and you're driving around trying to locate him. And I think for me, more than anything, the sense that I get is really desperation. I've made all these calls, texts. I'm not getting anything back. I know he's moved, but I don't even know his address. So what am I left to do? Get in my car and cruise around, stopping at places that I know he sometimes frequents.
Yeah.
Kathy also called Brian's workplace 8 to 10 times and spoke with the security office. She told Disappeared that they said they'd get back with her, but no one ever did.
It's disappointing when you call a place where your kid is working and you leave that many messages and no one gives you a courtesy call. And I don't know if they're restricted about what they can and can't say because obviously he's an older adult.
Yeah, he's an adult.
But still.
If you say you're going to call back, I guess is my thought. If you can't call back, then don't say you're going to call back. When Andrew Dowler returned home from vacation, Brian was not at the house, but he didn't think much of this. A couple of days passed and Brian didn't come home. And then, I think the concern set in for Andrew because Brian's cats were still at the house. He got very worried about Brian, but he didn't have his phone number to contact him. And, this is something that we've talked about quite a bit. Pets. It was known. Brian loved his cats. We even said he referred to them as his fur babies. He's not going to voluntarily leave his cats with no one to care for them, no food, no water, nothing.
Exactly. Because like you said, the love that he had for his animals, his fur babies.
Yeah. Brian's friend, Nate Bosea, hadn't talked to him for about a month. He was worried too that Brian wasn't answering the phone, but he thought Brian might be involved with a man at that time. Kathy called him and told him that Brian was missing. The next time Nate called Brian, it went straight to voicemail. So we have a number of people now, including Brian's mother, who are worried. They're trying to contact him in different ways, and they're just getting nothing.
It's got to be concerning.
Yeah, it's definitely concerning when you haven't seen him and you can't contact him. And he's not calling to say, hey, I don't want you to worry about me, guys. I went to Cabo, or I just needed a vacay or something like that. He's not calling.
No.
In January 2018, Andrew checked his email and saw a message from Brian dated December 28th. The email indicated that Brian was planning to move out soon. According to Fox 13, Brian wrote, "At the moment, I might not be at my best." He ended by saying he was looking forward to having a great working relationship and friendship.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't easy being at that home, seeing his ex, AJ, and AJ's new boyfriend, Dylan being there. So, yeah, I get it. He wanted to move out and try to retain whatever friendship he had with Andrew.
Yeah, but I want to dissect this phrase. At the moment, I might not be at my best. I think you can take that a number of different ways.
You could.
Some people might look at that as he's experiencing some mental health issues.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but you could maybe draw that conclusion.
You could.
Or it could be just what you said. Simply nothing more than I just don't want to deal with this. I can't deal with this seeing, my ex with his new boyfriend every day. Dowler said in his interview with Disappeared, with the whole dynamic, I can understand why he wouldn't want to stay here. So him leaving kind of fit in partially with the story of maybe he just disappeared. Kathy doubts that Brian really sent the email. Brian had a master's in reading and literature, and the email was not his usual writing style or spelling. And there were some misspelled words in the email, not to the point where you couldn't make out what they were, but
if you studied literature
or if you went through the fourth grade, you could spell some of these words.
Yeah, some of you could.
I mean, this is not onomatopoeia or discombobulate. I mean, it's not one of these really hard words. None of these are.
Onomatopoeia.
Friendship.
Should I use it in a sentence before I spell it for you?
Yes, please. True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare. So it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. In late January, Andrew decided to email Brian. He wrote, "Hey, are you alive?" Okay.
It's to the point.
Yeah, I get it. You're like saying, "Hey man, you alive? I haven't heard from you." not really thinking that he's not alive. It's more of a, hey, can you respond, please? Andrew also noted that AJ was renting out Brian's car to other people.
Strange.
That is strange. That is strange.
I see his keys here. He's not here. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and rent his car out. Why not? What could it hurt?
Yeah, I remember when you did that to me that one time and slapped a Alamo sticker on the side of it. I didn't see the car for like 2 weeks.
I made a lot of money.
I know you did. I never saw a dime either.
It was awesome.
He told Disappeared that he saw people come to the house, pick up the keys, and exchange money. He asked AJ if he knew what was going on with Brian or if he had talked to him. AJ said Brian hadn't responded to him and he wasn't worried because Brian disappeared often. According to Andrew, AJ seemed detached when he spoke with him. Andrew said at one point he shoved AJ against the wall and asked where Brian was. He said, there was a moment I could see it. He looked at me with his eyes and I was instantly scared. I just didn't see that side of him at first. Okay, so let's dissect that a little bit. I think Andrew saw this renting out of Brian's car as a very strange sign, kind of as we pointed out.
Right.
Most people would not be happy if you did that to them. So to some people, would that denote maybe the fact that this person's not coming back, so I don't have to worry about it?
Yeah, it could.
And then, you have this confrontation between Andrew and AJ in which Andrew sees a much different side of AJ than I think he's ever seen before. A scary side, as he put it.
And it makes you wonder, is this the real AJ?
Or is this what this person is capable of?
of.
That's kind of what I took from it, yeah. After January 15th, 2018, AJ had someone come pick him up, and that was the last time Andrew saw him. On February 11th of that year, Brian's vehicle, a gray 2014 Jeep Patriot, was found abandoned on the Morgan Street exit of the Selman Expressway in Tampa. Brian was nowhere to be found. Investigators believe the car was involved in an accident. A few days prior, the driver was Brian's roommate. According to Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigator Chuck Masucci, he had been using the car and was allegedly lending it out in exchange for drugs. So there's a couple things here. My first thought is, if you're kind of underhandedly renting out someone else's car, it's bound to be found abandoned somewhere at some point. You don't have a collection system for getting it back.
No, it's not like you're at Enterprise Rental and you have this agreement that they have to bring it back with a full tank of gas and
you have their credit card on file or whatever it is. And then, this statement that Brian's roommate was driving it and that he possibly got into an accident, they don't specify the roommate. But I think, when you kind of put together the fact that they say he had been using the car, he had allegedly been lending it out, that kind of falls in line with what we said about AJ. Yeah. But it doesn't specifically name him. However, Click Orlando and Bay News 9 reported that Brian's car was found in March. They said it was being driven by an unrelated third party and was involved in a car crash in Tampa. So like we see all the time, we've got different outlets reporting something different.
Conflicting information.
But either way, even if the second one is true, it sounds like it was rented out, for the lack of a better term, to somebody, and that person, got in an accident and they just walked away from it because there's probably no paper trail for them. They didn't sign an agreement, like you said. Kathy Klecha reported Brian missing in March 2018. Brian's NamUs profile states that he was reported missing on March 6th of that year. Kathy made a local police report, but she was told to go to the Tampa police. The Tampa police told her it wasn't their responsibility because Brian lived in Polk County. But the Tampa detective she spoke to said he would try to contact someone he knew at the state police. Kathy told Disappeared, it was really frustrating to me that nobody would investigate because they kept telling me it was somebody else's jurisdiction and it wasn't their responsibility.
I get it. I'd be really frustrated too. I mean, I just need help. If it's not you, go ahead and find out who it is.
Point me in the right direction.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like when you make a phone call to a company and they just keep passing you around because the person says you need to talk to this department. You get to that department and they say, no, I don't know why they told you that.
Right.
I'm going to transfer you here. Now we're talking about a much graver situation.
Sure.
So it's going to be a lot more frustrating and concerning. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement took on Brian's case because several jurisdictions were involved. Brian has ties to Orange, Polk, and Hillsborough counties. And the one thing that this made me think of was the Zodiac case. You know, if you remember in that case, the Zodiac murdered in multiple jurisdictions. And now, granted, this was many, many years before this, but they weren't talking to each other. It made the investigation harder. It's not apples and apples, but it kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Yeah, but you think if they would have worked together sooner.
Yes. And that's always been the thought in that case, is if they could have gotten together sooner, maybe the investigation would have gone differently. The investigation here was led by Chuck Masucci. Masucci came to Kathy's house in March 2018 to talk about Brian. He thought Brian abandoning his cats was suspicious, and so did we. We said that. Kathy didn't believe that Brian would leave his cats behind if he were going somewhere on his own. And to me, to be honest with you, that's the biggest thing in this case so far.
Sure.
Pointing to him not leaving voluntarily. I get it. Yes, he probably wanted to get out of that house. He wasn't happy having to be near AJ and his new boyfriend, Dylan. And maybe he was planning on leaving, but he wasn't going to leave without taking his fur babies. He just wasn't going to do it.
No. You know, maybe he felt okay leaving them for a night or two or something like that, right? They're cats who fill their dishes with water and food. They're going to be, you know, they have a litter box, so you don't have to let them out.
Yeah.
But you're not.
But they're going to be hungry.
Yeah, as long as you make sure they have food, right? But you're not going to leave them probably more than a day.
No, most people would not. Masucci told Disappeared that the case was problematic because they didn't know exactly where Brian went missing from.
Well, that is a good point.
Well, it is, because where do you start? Right? Normally you have kind of a starting point. If you think about unsolved cases.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a sighting. Somebody was headed to the grocery store. We know they made it there. Somebody saw them at the grocery store walking back home. Okay, that's a starting point.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing they have him on camera was getting some money out of the bank.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't really point you in a direction at all. Kathy made a flyer and a Facebook page to raise awareness about the case. She sent messages to Brian's friends and asked if they had seen him. Man, I'm telling you, she's doing everything she can do.
Yeah, and reaching out on social media, perfect.
Yeah, it's a great tool nowadays to use to reach a lot of people quickly, easily. She's doing everything she can do. I don't know any mother who wouldn't do the same thing, but you know, at the same time, it's got to be so frustrating because everyone you reach out to knows nothing, hasn't heard from Brian, hasn't seen Brian. So not only frustrating, but a little bit,
some despair.
Yeah. There's probably some despair. Now you're still very hopeful.
Yeah.
But there's a mix there, right? You never lose the hope until the hope is dashed by facts. But you got to think that there's doubt creeping in there where you're starting to think it's been too much time. It's been too much time. We haven't heard from him. Something wrong has happened. Something bad has happened.
And I think that's natural.
I think it is too. Brian's friend Nate went on dating apps and sent the missing persons poster to different people, hoping that someone would have information. Kathy received some tips via social media. Brian's coworker sent her a picture of AJ. So Kathy added it to the missing persons flyer.
Yeah, that's a good thing too, right? This is his last known boyfriend.
Yeah, I don't know if Kathy knew the situation, that they had broken up. I really don't know. Maybe she was just hoping someone had seen AJ because she wanted to talk to him.
Yeah.
In April 2018, Chuck Masucci got a lead in the investigation. He learned that Brian's last withdrawal took place on December 27th, 2018 at the bank in Auburndale. He contacted the bank and asked for their surveillance footage, which confirmed that Brian was the one who made the transaction. He took out $200 from his account, which was the amount his mother sent him for Christmas. Brian did not seem like he was under duress in the photos. So we already mentioned the surveillance footage, but now the investigators got a hold of it. And, there's a couple of important things here for me. He took out $200. I don't know how much he had in the account. But you're not taking off on $200.
No.
For,
not going to go very far.
Forever. You're not going off the grid with $200. But, probably even more important to investigators was that he didn't seem like he was under duress. Because you and I have profiled a number of cases where people have been taken against their will, forced to withdraw money from ATMs. And I'm sure they thought maybe that scenario could be in play here as well, but it doesn't seem as though it was. There was no mention of anybody, else with him or anything like that. Masucci talked to Andrew Dowler at his workplace. He thought Andrew was cooperative and forthright. Andrew described the tense atmosphere of the house just before Brian's disappearance. Nate told Disappeared that he did consider the possibility of suicide because Brian had attempted to end his own life at his house. He found Brian in a closet at his house. Brian had taken a lot of pills. Nate called 911 and Brian was taken to the hospital where he recovered. However, he did say in his documentary interview, but in Brian's case, I don't feel that he would do it in a way where we wouldn't find his body. So the fact that we haven't found one leads me to think that it wasn't suicide.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I do get it in a way. If he was going to do that, would he not want his mom to know what happened to him, his friends, his family? Would he not want them to ever find him and know what happened? I think that would be tough.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he would want them to have that, some answers.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of closure. Now, they may not have understood exactly why he did it unless he left a note or something. But
they wouldn't be left wondering.
Yes, and I don't think, and obviously Nate didn't think, I'm taking it from Nate, that he would have done that. Nate initially thought that Brian ran away because he needed to be alone. But when he learned Brian didn't take his cats with him, he became very concerned. It keeps coming back to the cats, man. I'm telling you, to me, that is the biggest thing.
Sure, everybody knew how much he loved his cats.
And there's a thought I have that, if he is going through this really hard time, even more reason that he would want his cats with him.
Yeah.
They give comfort. They make you feel better. They lift you up a little.
They do. And if he was going to harm himself, wouldn't you think he'd try to place the cats where he knew they would be okay?
Yeah, again, the cats say a lot about what potentially happened to Brian. According to Chuck Masucci, AJ told a friend Brian went out for a walk and never came back. He told a roommate that Brian went back to his family. Then he told a second roommate that Brian went to a campground that caters to the gay community.
So AJ's telling two different stories.
At least two different.
Yeah.
That we know of. Sawmill Campground is an LGBTQ hotspot in Florida, according to Ryan Williams Gent, the managing editor of Watermark, an LGBTQ news source for Central Florida and Tampa Bay. According to Disappeared, Andrew Dowler said he knew Brian was interested in Sawmill Campground because there were often large parties there, and Brian was looking forward to letting loose. So the FDLE sent agents to the campground. They canvassed the neighborhood. They were hoping to find video footage of Brian or witnesses who had seen him, but they didn't find anything. On April 4th, 2018, Andrew Dowler allowed the FDLE to search the house. Masucci noticed that there was no door at the entrance to Brian's room. The door had been kicked in and a sheet was hanging over it. He saw furniture, clothing, and debris in Brian's room. Investigators used what was called Blue Star in the room, which showed 7 to 10 spots where there was potentially blood. Now, I'm not familiar with Blue Star. I don't remember it ever coming up.
I don't remember Blue Star in the Wall Street movie.
I don't even remember that.
Blue Star Airlines.
Oh, okay. Is that one of the stocks that he was trading or something?
That his dad worked at the airline for, mechanic.
Yeah, so this must be, newer technology used to detect blood. Investigators took DNA swabs and sent it to the crime lab for analysis. They learned that Brian was not the only person living in the room before his disappearance. Andrew allowed multiple people to stay there for different amounts of time. Masucci told Disappeared, based on the amount of people that stayed there, based on the activities that occurred, our swabs picked up 3 to 5 contributors, and those are not able to be analyzed. A profile cannot be created. And with that many biological contributors, the data was undeterminable. There's just too much DNA. It's all mixed, right?
It's a DNA problem.
It is if you're trying to create a profile.
Yeah. It sounds like they're headed down another dead end there.
And I always think about that in cases, if you have one person living in a house and they don't have a lot of people over, something like that, you're not expecting to find tons of different fingerprints, tons of DNA from other people.
Right.
So if you do, it might mean something. But if you're at the party house where, there's been a number of people in and out, there's been different people living in that same room over the last, whatever period of time, you're going to find all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah. I've been here enough that I know my DNA's here.
Okay, that's a little scary. I don't know why it would be, and please don't tell me. Investigators searched parks and vacant land around the house as well as the water. Masucci decided to talk to AJ, but he had a hard time locating him. AJ had no addresses on record, no vehicles registered to his name, and no place of employment. Witnesses told Agent Masucci where AJ might be living. He talked with AJ for the first time in June 2018 in Tampa, Florida. AJ invited him into his home. Masucci described him as personable and soft-spoken. Masucci wanted AJ to give him an account of his relationship with Brian and what Brian was doing around Christmas 2017.
That's because it's critical. This is critical information.
Yeah, because really up to this point, they don't have much to go on.
No.
They need somebody to kind of fill in the gaps.
This is an important conversation because AJ was one of the last people to have a relationship with him before his disappearance. And maybe AJ is the one that can fill in those gaps.
Yeah, no doubt a good person to talk to. AJ said that his relationship with Brian was unbalanced. Brian wanted a monogamous relationship, but AJ didn't. And this led to conflict between them. And I think that's going to lead to conflict in any relationship. When one person wants to be monogamous and the other person says, no, I don't want to be, that's tough. One morning after December 27th, they got into an argument. They were the only ones at the house at that time. Brian left, and that was the last time AJ saw him. So, we talked about it earlier, right? AJ was using Brian's car. He was allegedly lending it out for drugs. Masucci told Disappeared, I wouldn't identify him as a significant drug dealer, but I believe that he did dabble or peddle in it. So that's what he said. So he's not Pablo Escobar.
No.
That's what he's saying, but he was dealing.
Yeah.
On some level, maybe a small level.
Maybe it is to his friends.
Additionally, Brian's cell phone, bank card, and passport were found in AJ's possession, as reported by the Disappeared blog. When Masucci asked AJ about taking Brian's property, he said Brian would want him to use those things and their relationship, quote, allowed for that. There was no need for him to have overt confirmation.
Well, I don't know why he would need to use the passport.
It did seem strange to me. I get it. When you're in a relationship, you share things.
Sure.
But they were no longer in that relationship.
It hadn't been for weeks. Yeah.
So are you telling me that the relationship still at that point allowed for basically the taking of anything you wanted? Now, that doesn't pass the smell test.
It does not.
AJ never admitted that he committed theft or had anything to do with Brian's disappearance. Masucci told the documentary team, but I felt like there were certain situations in this case that I felt were untruthful. I never call a person a liar until I catch them in a lie. I did confront AJ with those points. The specification I prefer not to talk about at this point because we're dealing with an open investigation. But I can say this, that AJ did not put my mind to rest. It adds to more suspicion as to his behavior.
I can see that.
Well, and I think that's a very telling statement.
You have your ex-boyfriend's passport, phone, bank card, and he's disappeared.
And this guy is saying he didn't do anything in the interview to put my mind at ease. If anything, I'm getting from it that he was more suspicious after talking with AJ. Now, he can't come out and say he might have had something to do with it. He's a suspect. You can't say those things.
Especially during an active investigation. Maybe he's trying to close some loops.
That's true. That's true. So there may be more to it that he couldn't reveal. Andrew told Disappeared drugs were always at the house. At that time, AJ was the supplier. He made it very clear when he was going to pick stuff up, when he was delivering. Nate Bosea added that Brian was involved with people who did drugs, but Brian was adamant about not liking drugs. In Nate's opinion, AJ was not treating Brian right. Brian told him that AJ had taken money from his wallet. This was strange because Brian was the type of person who would give someone money if they asked for it.
So what does that tell you?
It makes it seem, if it's true, as though, even after the breakup, maybe AJ just thought he could do whatever he wanted, or even during the relationship, he just thought he could do whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
Take whatever he wanted. It also, based on, some of the things that Nate said, made it seem as though, Brian wasn't into drugs, but he was into AJ. And even though, he might have been doing drugs and or selling drugs, he looked the other way because he really liked this guy.
Right. He cared more about the guy than what the guy
was
doing.
That's kind of what it sounds like to me. In August 2018, the FDLE asked the public for help in finding Brian Klecha. They also asked for help in identifying a man who may have information about his location. The picture of this man is available online. However, on August 17th, 2018, authorities announced they were no longer searching for the unidentified man.
That was really quick.
Yeah, it was. And there was really no explanation that I saw. So my thought is they must have figured out either who he was or that he wasn't involved. And they just said, hey, we're not searching for him anymore.
You got to think, we're 8 months since he's been missing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're finally asking the public for help. It's a long time.
It is. I always wonder, why they wait. I'm sure there's a decision process that they go through. I was watching the Netflix documentary, the new one on the Boston Marathon bombing.
Yeah.
And in it, the FBI agents, they were debating on whether to release the photographs of the brothers.
Yeah.
And it was like they were weighing the pros and cons. Now they got leaked, I think, to the press anyway, but they were really kind of weighing the pros and the cons of leaking, or not leaking, but distributing these photos and asking the public for help. That one's a little different because I think they were worried about backlash against these people if they didn't have anything to do with it. They were also worried about, I think, backlash against the Muslim community.
True.
If, they didn't have anything to do with it. This is different to me. They got diddly squat during these 8 months on what happened to Brian Klecha. I don't see the downside in, putting information out and asking for the public's help. His mom had been doing it. I think some friends were doing it. I don't know why the police would be hesitant to do it or wait that long.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe there's a reason, and I just can't think of it. AJ has never been charged in relation to Brian's case. Nate Bosea said in the 2022 Disappeared episode that he learned AJ moved to Puerto Rico. In April 2019, Agent Masucci received a series of tips. The first callers who contacted the FDLE wanted to remain anonymous. Crime Stoppers submitted tips that indicated Brian was killed and buried under concrete. So apparently Masucci did like 12 to 15 interviews based on these tips, which led to searches of 2 different properties with cadaver dogs, but investigators didn't find anything during the searches. So I don't know if the tips were credible, not credible.
But disappointing either way.
Or the dogs just couldn't find anything. I don't know. On December 26, 2019, the FDLE offered a reward of up to $10,000 for information leading to the identification and arrest of those involved in Brian's disappearance. So that was 2 years after he disappeared. Now I get it. The offering up of a reward is a little different than asking for the public's help. That doesn't cost anything.
It's free.
It's free, right? You just put out a presser, do a press conference and give the pictures to the media. They'll do the rest.
Just let it run. Yeah.
FDLE Tampa Bay Special Agent in Charge Mark Brutnell said, after 2 years, we continue to work leads in the case, but we need more information. Someone knows what happened to Brian or where he is now, and we won't stop until we know. We're asking anyone with information about Brian Klecha to please contact Crime Stoppers of Tampa Bay at 1-800-873-TIPS. The FDLE website states agents believe Mr. Klecha did not leave or go missing on his own and believe he may have been the victim of domestic or drug abuse.
So they're stating what they think might have happened.
Yeah, but in doing so, doesn't it seem as though it kind of points to one person?
That's what I was thinking.
When you use the word domestic and then they use the word drugs, there's one person that fits both of those categories.
Yeah.
Now, again, they can't come out and say, just like we can't come out and say that we believe this person or that person did anything, but it's hard not to think that without saying it, they have AJ in mind as being involved somehow.
Yeah. Makes you wonder if someone's taking a trip down to Puerto Rico.
In September 2021, the FDLE was notified by Volusia County that they were looking at unidentified remains. So currently the FDLE has a flag out on Brian so that when a body is found in Florida or anywhere else in the U.S. for that matter, they get a notification to look for similarities to Brian's description. Andrew Dowler said that in 2001, the police sent him confidential information about a body found in a park that matched Brian's description. They asked him to identify the clothing found at the scene. Andrew looked at the pictures of the clothing, which was the same brand Brian wore. However, in April 2022, the FDLE confirmed that the body was not Brian Klecha.
Unfortunate. Or fortunate, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough in these unsolved cases. If your family, if your friends, you don't want the notification that your loved one or this person that you really care about has been found dead. But at the same time, you don't want to go 5, 10, 15 years with no answers
never
either.
Knowing.
So there's no good outcome other than someone finds him and he's living his life.
Yeah.
Other than that,
it's all bad.
It's all bad. But like a lot of people say, I think the not knowing is really, really tough.
Yeah.
On December 19th, 2022, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement announced that they were still seeking the public's help in finding Brian Klecha. WTSP reported that Special Agent in Charge Mark Brutnell said about the case, Brian had a steady job. He had a good circle of friends. He loved his pets. And then after December 27th, 2017, all that changed. No one has heard or seen from him. His social media is non-existent. His pets had been abandoned. His storage unit, which had some of his belongings in it, was auctioned off by the storage company. And the most important aspect of that is that his mother has not heard from her son in 5 years. That's very concerning for us. You don't just vanish off the face of the earth.
Well, he's right.
Yeah, and he is saying exactly what I always believe. Now, do some people make the decision that they want to vanish? Yes, it does happen.
It does.
But I think when you look at it from an unsolved perspective, the percentage of time that happens versus some type of foul play, I don't think they compare.
No.
I just don't believe that many people vanish voluntarily. I just don't.
No, I agree with you. Something is happening. Something happened. We just don't know what because no one's coming forward.
Yeah, there's just such a lack of information in this case. And it probably is because there's one or two people that really know what happened to Brian, and it's not in their interest at all to come forward and shed light on it because they would probably implicate themselves in a criminal act. It's been over 6 years since Brian went missing. He's not made contact with any of his family or friends. Again, we said it up front. They do not believe that Brian left the house willingly or that he would have left his beloved cats behind. Kathy believes that the people closest to Brian know something about his disappearance. And I think she's probably right. Now, who those people are, I don't know. But I would find it hard to believe that this is probably a stranger abduction. I think there was someone close to him.
Yeah.
That knows exactly what happened to Brian and most likely had a hand in it. Brian is described as a white male, 6 foot tall, 180, 190 pounds, with a cleft chin, strawberry blonde hair, and green eyes. Crime Stoppers in the FDLE are offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and identification of the individual or individuals involved. Brian's family is also offering a $5,000 reward. If you have any information about the disappearance of Brian Klecha, you can call Special Agent Mark Seckley at 813-557-5287 or 813-878-7334. So, Gibbs, as we wrap up this case, I mean, we've talked a lot about it already, but this is such a baffling case. You know, first off, because there's just so little in the way of information.
That's a problem, right?
Yeah, at least that's been publicly disseminated. It's possible that the police know more. That's always possible. But obviously they don't know enough or have the evidence to charge anyone, or they would have.
By now, sure. Maybe they're just waiting for that little tidbit that can tie something together.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to think that without them coming out and saying it, that they have AJ kind of in their sights. At least they're looking at him. They have looked at him. They think he's suspicious. At least one of the detectives said that. So, you know, I just don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think there are cases where investigators believe they know at least one person that was involved in some capacity, but belief doesn't get you anywhere.
No.
Evidence does. And without evidence and they could be completely wrong too.
They could be, but I think what some of the detectives have said and what Brian's own mom said is right. I think it's somebody close to him that knows more than they're willing to share.
Yeah. No, I absolutely believe that. But that's it for our episode on the unsolved disappearance of Brian Klecha. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Yeah, let's hear those.
Hi, my name's Hunter. I'm listening from Nova Scotia, Canada. And I was just listening to the Lisa Ooh, I already forget how to say it, episode, and you were talking about how that was like, I haven't finished it, but you were talking about at the moment the fake police officer pulling up. And I think you should look at, it's actually the anniversary of it right now. There was a mass shooting in Nova Scotia. I think it's Canada's largest mass shooting, 3 years ago. And the whole premise was the guy pretended to be a police officer, and he actually has like an actual retired police car. He had the official uniform, and he was pulling people over, and that's how he was killing them, and like going up to their doors, and it caused this like mass hysteria. And you talking about the suspecting that the person was a fake police officer just kind of reminded me of that. It's still ongoing. I mean, we know who did it. The guy's dead, but it's kind of cool to look into if you want to see something more about the fake police officer. So yeah, this is my first time calling something, so I'm kind of nervous. Stay safe, keep your own time taking. Bye.
Oh, I love that laugh at the end.
Oh yeah,
that just tickled me.
It was a good laugh.
It was an uplifting laugh. That's I definitely will look into that.
Sure.
We love to do Canadian cases. Obviously, that sounds like a heartbreaking one, but.
Hi. My name is Brandon. Fairly new listener, but coming from PA here. And I realize you guys are from Ohio. Big Buckeye fan out here. OH. But I do have two suggestions. One, her name is Lisa Mandarak. She was murdered. She was taken away. She went shopping with her and her daughter, and to a shop up near where I'm from.
Okay. It just ended like that.
Suspenseful.
I think he just wanted us to say I-O.
I do.
Is what he did. But for some reason, that name sounds very familiar.
It does.
So I'll have to make sure it's on the list. We'll definitely look into it.
Thanks for that.
Hey, what's up, guys? I was listening to the unsolved case about Lisa in Hawaii, and I know y'all said something about the blue lights, the extra blue lights on the police vehicles. Well, in Florida, where I live, I know officers are allowed to purchase extra lights for their vehicles to kind of give them more of a sight out there and be more seen. So I'm assuming that's probably what they're referring to. Hopefully this helps you out and keep your own time ticking.
Hey, I remember when I was in high school, I had a buddy that back then you could walk in.
You just had one buddy?
No, I had more than one. Two. No. But he walked into a Radio Shack. Remember Radio Shack?
Oh, I do.
And he bought one of those blue lights. You could get them blue or red, and he had one that he would put on top of his car and have fun with. Now,
it's illegal.
But it's what he did, But
it sounds like the type of person you would have hung out with back then.
He wasn't using it for that type of stuff, but he was having fun against, some of our friends.
Yeah.
But,
still illegal.
A party trick.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I guess when we were doing the episode, I remember it because it just happened last week, but my thought was, if you wanted more lights, why wouldn't the department give you more lights? Yeah. If it was a good idea to have more lights, let's get some more lights.
Yeah, I really want my car to really light it up. I'm gonna buy myself some more lights.
But I guess they were like, okay, this is what we're gonna give you.
Yeah.
If you want to spend your own money to get more lights, then
go ahead.
Then go for it. So I don't know. And I'm sure just like everything we talk about, it probably varies state by state.
Yeah.
In some, or jurisdiction by jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, you're right.
But that's it, buddy, for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
See what's screaming all month long during Pluto TV's April Ghouls. Watch hauntingly good movies like Evil Dead and Cloverfield, or terrifying shows like The Walking Dead and Nosferatu. Plus, Pluto TV has hundreds of channels with thousands more movies and TV shows. Available on live and on demand. Download the free Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.